Right after high school, I served 4 years in the United States Navy. I've shared that with you before, and most of that time I was on ship. And whenever we had bad storms, like tropical storms, hurricanes, we had to go out and ride the storm. We couldn't stay in port. The potential for damage to the ship was too great, also to the dock or any ships beside us. And my duty out at sea was helm, lee helm, and after steering. So basically, I either steered the ship or I was in charge of the speed. That in itself is a scary thought. To put me in charge of steering a ship or the speed, but that was my job. And I remember many times being out in storms, and the officer on deck would have me steer the ship into the storm because that minimized, to a certain extent, the movement of the ship, at least the pitch. There was an instrument behind the helm on my ship, and I don't remember the name of the instrument, but it measured the degree of pitch, that is, the sway on either side of the ship. And I remember sometimes we would go as much as 30 to 35 degrees. But that's not the only movement of a ship. You know, you have the pitch, you have the sway, you have the roll, you have the yaw and the heave. All of these are technical terms of different movements of the ship. And when you're in a storm, you have all of these movements going, and that's what makes you sick. That's where you get nauseous and seasick, and it happens to the best of us, even the most salty of sailors, meaning those that have done it the longest. Sometimes for them, it even got to them. It got to me, whether I was on the bridge or on the mess decks or down in the berthing compartment where we slept, where we had 3 bunks on high, one over the other. Now, when you're out at sea in normal seas, normal weather, you have that little bit of that sway. When you're in your bunk, it's almost like you're being in a cradle and it kind of rocks you to sleep. But when you're in a storm and you have these extreme movements, it makes sleeping very difficult, if not impossible. And we would have to put our strap, we had a strap in our bunk that we'd have to put over us so we wouldn't roll out of the bunk. Now, I'm sharing this with you as a background for one who's experienced what it's like to be in a ship during a storm. And it fascinates me with today's gospel, that Jesus was in a boat. Not a ship, he was on a boat, maybe 25 feet long, maybe 8 feet wide, in the middle of a storm, and he's sleeping? How in the world could he do that? The Sea of Galilee is about, it's a lake, really. It's called the Sea of Galilee, but it's a lake. It's about 13 miles long, about 8 miles wide. It's 600 feet below sea level. So you have this decline, and you have these mountains and hills that surround it, and there are ravines that are very narrow. And in the evening, when the heat of the air rises and the cool air comes underneath it, it comes through these narrow ravines, and it's almost like it's pushed through a wind tunnel, and this accelerated wind goes over the surface of the water, and it creates these squalls even today, sometimes 6, 7 feet. And Jesus is in the midst of this kind of a storm with these kind of squalls. He's in a boat. He has no cover. And so you have all of this movement, and you have this wind and the spray of the water, if not rain. And Jesus is able to sleep. That's amazing to me. Talk about having, a good sleeping ability, good sleeping habits, I don't know. But as amazing as this is, it's the teaching that underlies this. that Jesus had complete and total trust in the providence of God. You know, Mark is relaying this story, and the focal points are on the two questions that the disciples ask. And this is even more amazing. Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing? And then the last question, who then can this be that even wind and sea obey? Well, let's begin with that last question first. Who could it be? Who else could it be than God? Only God can control the wind. Only God can control the sea. And so Mark, in his gospel, is sharing this with us early on, establishing for us who Jesus is, that he's God. And then that second question, teacher, do you not care that we are perishing? Now that we have established who Jesus is, this question is really addressed to God. God, do you not care that we are perishing? You know, this gospel, Mark, the first gospel that was written in Rome or somewhere around Rome during the time of Nero. And Nero had it as his primary ambition at some point to hunt down the Christians of the early church, hunt them down, to arrest them, put them in prison, torture them, and to kill them for sport, whether it be in the arena for entertainment or make them as human torches to light up the streets at night in the city of Rome. And so this story had special interest for the early church because this story was metaphorical. They were the boat. The early church was that boat in the middle of the storms of life, the storms of their persecution, of their suffering. And so this question was their question as well. But my friends, even though the faces and the situations have changed, the boat and the storms remain. And that question has been passed on. We still ask that question even today. God, do you not care that we are perishing? None of us can be exempt from the storms of life. None of us can avoid it. All of us will experience illness and suffering and ultimately death. All of us will experience the hardships and the challenges and the struggles and the difficulties of life. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter how much faith you have. It doesn't matter how good of a Catholic you are. It doesn't matter how much you know the Scriptures. In fact, if you know the Scriptures, you know that even Paul himself speaks of this. The letter of James reminds us of this. But we still ask the question, God, do you not care? Do you not care that I have cancer? Lord, do you not care that my wife or my husband has died? Do you not care that I'm alone?
Do you not care, God, that I lost my job? I'm unemployed. I have no money. I'm broke. I can't pay my bills. Do you not care, God, that my husband left me? My wife divorced me. Do you not care, God, that I'm depressed? That I'm lonely, I'm confused. I don't know where to turn. God, do you not care that we are perishing? You know, in my room, I have not one, but two icons of this scene, of Jesus calming the storm. One of them is a print of an ancient Byzantine icon. It shows the boat in the middle of the Sea of Galilee. The disciples, you can tell they're filled with fear and anxiety. It shows, I'm guessing, Peter standing and looking at Jesus, and it looks like he's saying those very words. Lord, do you not care that we are perishing? It's the outside of that icon that really interests me and fascinates me. Because on the outside, on the periphery, there are all these little, they're junior demons, I call them. You have one, he has a horn, and he's blowing out of this long horn, and you can see the wind coming out of it. And then you have these other demons, they're doing something almost comical. They have these swine, these pigs. Some of them are picking them up by the hind legs, and they're bringing them over to the water. Some of them are actually putting them in the water, you know, and the swine are not happy about this. Others are actually riding the swine in the water. Now, I would imagine that this is symbolic of chaos, of anxiety, of irrational behavior. Have you ever held a baby pig before? They squeal, and they go nuts, they go crazy. And that's what's happening in the water, in the storm. There's chaos, there's craziness, there's all of this irrational behavior happening. It's happening to the disciples. You can tell how fearful and afraid they are. But in the midst of all of this, in this icon, you look at the face of Jesus. There's this calm, this quiet. So much so that he's taking a nap. Not a concern. Complete and total calm. You know, I had a spiritual director who once said to me, Jesus never promised that he would calm every storm in your life. However, Jesus did promise that he would calm you in every storm in your life. Lord, did you not care? Do you not care that we are perishing? What was the response of Jesus in the gospel? Well, first of all, he's there. He's in the midst of the storm. He's in the boat. He's with the disciples in the middle of the storm. He has not abandoned them. He is with them. Secondly, there's this calm, this quiet. And when he stands, he says, quiet, be calm. And he extends that calm to the elements, to nature itself. And not only that, but even to the disciples who at one moment were filled with fear and anxiety and now are transformed with awe and wonder. Jesus never promised that he would calm every storm in your life, but he did promise that he would calm you in every storm in your life. So come, Lord. Come and calm our troubled spirits. And give us that quiet and that peace that only you can give in the storms of life.